Welcome back, everybody.
It's another week.
It's Monday,
Oh, yeah.
week 7, episode 19 of the Below Average Joe's UFC podcast. And today is the recap show of hashtag UFC Vegas 11. Dom, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Another great weekend of UFC action. The most action-packed fight card of the year. Arguably
For sure.
one of the most stacked of all time, and I think it delivered.
Oh, it for sure delivered. Paid in full. Hashtag it.
Shout out Dustin Poirier.
That I said going in, this was going to be potentially the most stacked fight night. Well, I said on paper it's the most stacked fight night of all time. And I think that it more than lived up to that.
It was great.
There really wasn't a dull fight on this whole card.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if you include the prelims. But
It's facts.
we're talking about the main card, so I'm just going to break down the results real quick, and then we will get into, the news and whatnot. So we started off with Kevin Holland getting a split decision win over, what's his last name? Darren Stewart.
Darren Stewart, yep.
And then we had Mackenzie Dern getting the armbar win in round 1 over Randa Marcos. Then Johnny Walker getting a big knockout win over Ryan Spann.
What a interesting round
that was. We'll talk about that for sure. And then the surging prospect Hazmat Chimaev getting a knockout win over Gerald Mearchart in, how long was it, Dom?
17 seconds.
17 seconds.
One punch.
One punch. That was all it took. Why am I blanking?
Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
I don't know why I just blanked there. Cowboy Cerrone and Nico Price fought to a majority draw. A great fight there. And then our main event, Colby Covington getting the, what they call it, fifth round
TKO due to
injury.
Yeah. Tyron Woodley broke his rib.
Yeah. And that was the results from Saturday night's fights, and we'll break all those down in more detail later on. But first, it's time for the news.
The news.
Not too much going on since, we just had our news segment on Friday. A lot of stuff, a lot of moving pieces with the Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Days of Our Lives fiasco shit going on there. But a couple of things worth talking about here. First, basically a pioneer for the UFC's heavyweight division. Probably one of the biggest rivalries in heavyweight history between him and Brock Lesnar. Talking about Frank Mir. He has not been in the UFC for a few years now, but he just announced, actually had been in Bellator, I believe.
I believe that was the most recent.
He's officially signed with Bare Knuckle FC.
My, oh my.
Now, we just talked about Bare Knuckle FC not too long ago when 12-gauge Paige Van Zandt signed there, and what was probably the most shocking news announcement I'll ever hear in my life. But this one may be a little less so. But, Dom, I'm just curious, do you have any really thoughts about this? I know it wasn't really something we talked about too much. It's just something we wanted to make note of.
Yeah, man, Frank Mir is kind of one of the staples from the, not the good old days, but that era, like you said, around Brock Lesnar, a little before Brock, and then a little after Brock. He was always kind of fighting the top of the top. His submission game for a heavyweight was unbelievable.
Yeah. I will say, even though when he won the belt, it was at probably the weakest point in the UFC's heavyweight division. Because basically the UFC's, when you're talking about the good old days, if you go back to the early days, the UFC prided itself on its heavyweights.
Yeah.
That's the first belt they introduced with Mark Coleman. You had guys like Dan Severn. Randy Couture was that heavyweight at the time. Kevin Randleman. Even, I believe, Boss Rutan, guys like that. Those were the guys that were on top at the time. Well, then when you get to kind of right before The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 and all that, the UFC's heavyweight division, most of the top heavyweights in the world were accepted as being a part of Pride. So Frank Mir was there. Then you have like Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovsky. Don't get me wrong, those are three great guys. But, you know, Tim Sylvia seems to kind of get a lot of the flack for that time frame. You know, Dana's said a lot of things about Tim Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the fans do not particularly care for him. But even though Frank Mir was he won the belt, and then he gets in a very serious motorcycle accident, nearly dies, or at least is nearly not able to compete anymore. Comes back, has a couple of really tough losses to guys that he probably shouldn't have been losing to. I believe one of them was to Brandon Vera, actually.
He's in one now, right? Brandon Vera's in one championship, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So then he's one's dominant heavyweight champ, actually. But Frank works his way up, back, starts becoming more of that old Frank Mir. Brock Lesnar's debut is against Frank Mir, and Frank beats him with the what was it? It was like an ankle lock type thing.
Yeah, and I always loved the tap that Brock did. Was the most WWE tap ever. I loved it.
Tapped him right on the ass too.
Yeah, the big sigh and the big slaps, not just the little ones like you see in MMA. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So he's able to beat Frank Mir Brock Lesnar in Brock's UFC debut. Brock ends up winning the belt later. Frank wins the interim heavyweight title, I believe. So they headline UFC 100, which is one of the biggest shows the UFC's ever done. That does not go well for Frank Mir. But yeah, you're right. He's always kind of hung around the top there. You know, he had like some tough losses to like, I believe JDS and maybe even Shane Carwin's the one that stuck out to me where he got kind of brutalized in that one. But he was fighting in UFC until I believe 2015 or 2016. I mean, he was always hanging around the top up until the end there.
Yeah, dude.
Goes on to Bellator. Don't really know what he was doing over there, like how much success he had. I don't think he fought too many times over there. And now he's going to Bare Knuckle FC. And like you were saying, he's probably one of the best submission specialists the heavyweight division's ever seen. And it's surprising that he's going over there when it's all about the bare knuckle punches and stuff.
There's going to be no ankle locks over there.
Yeah, so I'm definitely curious how this is going to go for him. But he's definitely up there in age, so.
Yeah, and I'm interested. I wonder like how the heavyweight division looks in that organization. Like I said, I don't follow it. If I'm being
honest, I know nothing about Bare Knuckle FC. So I couldn't tell you if they even have fucking divisions. I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Yeah, that was a shocking little news piece. I just thought it was very interesting, more so than anything, just because that was something like that really came out of left field.
Well, I'm going to make an assumption here, and this is, I don't know if it's a fair assumption to make, but it's probably the last time we're going to hear Frank Mir as far as an announcement of him signing somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I would say after this stint at Bare Knuckle, he'll probably retire. I mean, I don't know how old he is exactly, but he's got to be about 40.
He's got to be right there in that ballpark, give or take a couple years.
And he's been fighting professionally forever.
Oh, yeah, long time.
So I don't think that he really has much else to prove. And I don't think, unless it's just a money thing at this point, I don't see any reason for him to keep fighting. But, some people just do it for the love of it. So
it's true.
Can't knock him for that. And Bare Knuckle seems to be making some splashes, weirdly enough.
They are, man. I mean, that Page announcement was obviously very huge. And then to get a seasoned vet that's done it all and Frank Mir, it's definitely interesting.
Well, I'm assuming they're willing to put out the cash right now. Which,
they must be.
I don't know where they're getting the money from, but to sign someone like Page, who was probably asking for quite a bit, considering what he offers outside of the octagon and whatnot, it's at least interesting to see that for bare knuckle, which is something that I won't claim to have too much interest in. And it definitely, the UFC always had that reputation as being barbaric and
Yeah.
human
My how the
cockfighting.
turntables, right?
Well, now bare knuckle's an even more violent version of that. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but just putting it out there that, like, it's surprising to see these big splashes being made by an organization that is so controversial right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was at least interesting because that's a UFC heavyweight pioneer right there.
Oh, absolutely.
But any other final thoughts?
We'll see what happens. Definitely interested to at least see some highlights from when he fights. I'll say that.
Yeah, I guess so. The next announcement is another one that's really surprising, but it's current, or as of his last fight, he was a UFC bantamweight, but he's also fought in flyweight. John Dodson released by the company. I'm just curious, Dom, what your thoughts are on that, because we just saw him fight at UFC 252 in a fight that was actually better than I thought it was going to be against Merab Dvalishvili.
Yeah, man. Like, another guy that's really been there and done that. A pioneer in the sense of kind of those small weight classes, especially one like flyweight. Great fights with Demetrius Johnson. I think he's challenged for a title 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. He's always been up there in that, top 10 for sure, and most of the time even top 5. And I know he's had kind of the back and forth run lately, and he moved up to 135, and I think he is relatively small for that weight class. But he didn't look bad there by any means. So I was just very surprised. Like, I don't know if it was a money thing or if they just kind of were ready to part ways. They didn't maybe see any, I don't want to say any value, but like any more potential matchups that would make sense, kind of. It's weird.
Yeah, it is a little weird. I mean, he's according to the rankings, he's actually not even ranked anymore. I don't know if they already just took him out or what. But he's, especially when you look at those flyweight days. I mean, him and Mighty Mouse kind of had that 2 fights then against each other. First fight was one that was really tough for Demetrius. If you're looking at through his defenses, who gave him the toughest fight, that first fight with Dodson was definitely up there. Second fight was much more dominant for Demetrius, but he was an Ultimate Fighter season winner, I believe. John Dodson was. A guy who a lot of people counted out due to his frame and size. He's only 5'3". But he's a guy that's always had some crazy knockout power, very fast on his feet. Really, I never really looked at him as like slowing down. I mean, it seemed like he moved back up to bantamweight, probably because the cut to 125 was a little too much for him. And maybe it was just the fact, like, his size and stature, maybe it was just catching up to him that he couldn't really compete with some of these taller, larger reach people in the bantamweight division. That fight with Merab, though, I mean, he hung in there. He had his moments. I mean, yes, it was a fight that Merab pretty much controlled the whole time, but, Dodson didn't look bad.
I agree, yeah.
I'm definitely surprised when they're looking for guys right now to fight. That's what Dana keeps saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
You got a guy that's top 15 who just fought at 252. It's not like he hasn't fought in a long time. It's not, but I'm surprised. That tells me that maybe there's something else to this. We haven't really heard any comment on either side. Maybe this is like a Corey Anderson type situation where it's like John Dodson's just wanting to leave, or maybe like you were saying, the UFC just doesn't see keeping him for maybe what he's being paid per fight because they don't see the matchups or whatnot. There's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
As much as you want it to just be guys who aren't UFC level being cut, it's not usually how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
You see guys, once they hit a certain level, they start getting paid a lot more. Well, you'll see guys that used to be really good that are no longer at that top of the top, but they're still getting paid like they're a top level fighter. Obviously, when the company you're working for stops feeling like they're making money off the money they're paying you, yeah, they probably will cut you. So
Right.
it is what it is, but
Wish him the best. I'd be interested to see if he goes to like a one championship or a Bellator or anything. Honestly,
I don't
I'm
know.
curious.
Yeah, I could see either one for him. It'd be interesting to see him go over to one since that's where Mighty Mouse is now.
Right? Maybe we get another one, another match.
third one over there. Yeah, but I do wish him the best, just because he's always been like from all accounts, he's been labeled as being a very nice and hardworking individual.
Yeah, and he always had that really fun like personality, the big smile at the weigh-ins where he'd do the spread his arms and all that.
Yeah.
So an entertaining guy.
Yeah. So all in all, wish him the best, and we'll leave it there, and hopefully we'll get an announcement from him soon on where his next move is. Now for our last bit of news, there was a video that came out of our main event for this coming Saturday. Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa, they were at the airport at the same time. I don't know if it was in Abu Dhabi or on the way to Abu Dhabi, I'm assuming. And they had a bit of an exchange, but
not the one you would expect.
Like, considering the bad blood that's been built up between these two, not exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah.
It was very playful, very friendly.
They were.
Dom, you were the one that sent it to me. What were your thoughts on this?
They had this. They shook hands, which is kind of just a respect thing, but still, like, these two, you wouldn't even think that would be a thing. So not only did they shake hands, but like they have a conversation and like joke with each other. It was something along the lines of like Israel was messing around with Paulo, calling him skinny because Paulo calls Izzy skinny all the time and makes fun of him and all that stuff. And they were just like chuckling, and it was weird, and I don't know what to think about it. To be honest.
So a lot of the talk online was that this was proof that this fight was just the hype was being drummed up, the bad blood being drummed up just for pay-per-view buys, that there's no real bad blood there. I don't really buy that.
Yeah, I don't think that extremely. You know what I mean?
Now let's really think about this, right? So on Paulo's end, really, most of what he's been saying has been like calling Israel skinny, which Israel has said in the past, like, he hates being called that. He was called that as a kid. He was always a real skinny kid. So that was like one of the reasons he got into fighting, was to show that he could be like, yeah, I might look smaller than you, but I'll kick your ass, kind of thing.
Yep.
While on Israel's end, he's been basically calling Paulo a PED user for forever. Not exactly. If you're someone who's in a sport that prides itself on being about doing things the right way, or pride and honor kind of thing, that's a pretty big insult to throw at someone. So yeah, I just think these are two guys that are professionals that understand that they're not going to actually fight when they're in an airport.
Right.
That, sure, they can just have some fun with each other in that moment, but when the cage door closes and it's time to go, all those bad blood, all that feelings, they're going to come back. Those two are going to have words. They're going to, not words, they're going to throw shit at each other.
Right.
I just think that there's no, sure. When you really look at what was said there, I think it was very playful, very jokey, but ultimately, think of what Adesanya's probably saying there, right? You got Costa, who he's already called a juice head, basically, for over a year. He's saying, you're skinny. Well, we're about less than a week away from that fight. So in a way, it's kind of like, oh, are you off the shit now because it's almost fight
Yeah, maybe it was even a jab of like, oh, this weight cut ain't going good. You
Yeah,
know, I
like
don't
I mean,
know. Like
it was
and they have the masks on, right? So you can't see their
yeah.
facial expression. It was just
And Paulo doesn't
unexpected.
have great English, you know,
Right.
so it's not like he's going to really get into a war of words with Adesanya, who speaks very good English. All in all, I don't take too much from it. It was very interesting to see,
I
just because of
honestly
the
liked it for some reason. I don't know. Like, because at the end of the day, I still think they don't like each other. Like, because this goes back nearly 2 years at this point. Like, we're talking
Right.
before Israel even fought Whitaker for the belt. They had been talking about each other. So, like, I don't think you can. Like, I know people are like, oh, it's just all staged hype, but I don't feel that at all. Like, this goes back quite a ways if you really dig into this a lot.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's fake by any means. Could it be drawn up a little more to create more hype? Yes. But at the end of the day, I don't think they like each other. But seeing this kind of mutual respect thing is cool. And it's like, okay, you know that when this fight's over, that bad blood should be settled, I would imagine, based off of what I saw in this video. But you never know. I mean, something could happen
Well,
during fight week and all hell breaks loose, right? You know, I
well,
don't
think
know.
about this. Just like with this bad blood between these two, it's not at the level of like a Habib and Connor,
Right, right.
or even a Colby and Woodley,
Yeah,
or
this
even
isn't like
Colby and Connor.
personal
It does.
attacks, you know?
It never felt like, sure, like calling someone a PED user is personal, but I mean, all in all, like the majority of what's been said has been, "I'm going to destroy you in the cage."
Yeah, basically. It's that competitive
Yeah,
trash talk more so,
yeah.
which I think kind of is
I
what
mean, yeah,
leads us
they've
to
had
seeing, you
some
know, these
jabs at each other.
handshakes
Like
and
Adesanya said after, I believe his win over Yoel, I believe he said like the fat Ricky Martin wannabe or whatever he called him. Like, you know, like sure, there's been some little jabs here and there, but like all in all, it doesn't seem like it's like boiling hot, like bad blood.
well,
Like
and
I
like
just like
Paulo and his team did that fake like video. That was freaking hilarious.
that
Of
was
they like
yeah, like it
recreated what the
seems like
fight's gonna be.
they're having fun with it, but like I don't think they like each other. I just think that it's like it's more of a competitive thing than personal.
Yeah,
In
man. At
my
the end of the
opinion,
day, we're talking about two undefeated fighters here.
one of those O's has got to go.
Oh man, we're just a few days away from breaking it down, Noah. Just a
Yeah,
couple days more.
yeah, it's getting real. But we'll leave that there. Not too much to take away from that, I think, but it seemed like it was kind of blowing up on Twitter, so I figured we'd talk about it.
Yeah.
And all in all, that's the end of the news.
The news.
And now it's time to really break down Saturday's fights.
Let's get into
Very
this.
excited to do this. A lot to take away here, I think. A lot to talk about. And we start with Kevin Holland and Darren Stewart. So, Dom, I'm sure you got the notepad handy. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
The notepad is here and full.
Yeah.
So this was a really good fight, all in all, which I think we expected. I think we expected this to be a great fight. It was very back and forth, striking, a lot of clinch work in the first round. I had it Kevin go up 1-0. The second round was basically identical to the first. Therefore, in my book, Kevin was up 2-0, 2 rounds to nothing going into the third. This is where Darren had a really big round 3. He had a big takedown and dominated really the final 2.5 minutes. Big ground and pound. They're talking trash to each other on the ground. And ultimately, Darren definitely won that round. So, technically it's 2 rounds to 1, right? So, okay, Kevin Holland should win 29-28. However, this was a split decision, meaning that one judge did give Darren Stewart this fight, and that is because you could make the argument that the third round was a 10-8 round for Stewart.
Well, I don't know if that's why. Well, that judge, it wouldn't have been because of a 10-8.
Well, he would have gave him another round, obviously, but I think there were people like calling for 10-8s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think more of I don't want to say controversy. I don't know if people were taking it that far, but the people that were more, I guess, on Darren Stewart's side of this decision thought it should have been a draw, I think, more than because I do think that maybe round 2 you could maybe make an argument for Darren Stewart, but I mean round 1 and 2 are pretty, you're right, like identical. Round 3 though, like the argument for a 10-8 is there. Maybe I'm too old school for it or something, where I don't put that many 10-8 rounds when I watch, but I didn't quite see it like that. All in all, I thought it was the right decision for Holland, but Holland didn't even think it was the right decision.
Yeah, Kevin immediately, like, right after the fight ended, apologized to Darren in the octagon because he admitted that he tired out, and it was very clear that he did in round 3. And he literally went up to Dana once they left the octagon and said, "Book it again, fight again, I'll do it, no problem." Not only do the fans deserve a complete 3-round war, but I owe it to Darren. And I thought that was really cool of Kevin, who's already kind of that fan favorite type of personality. So for him to be kind of stand up to not only the fans, not only to Dana, but to his opponent, and like, yeah, I beat you, but let's do it again anyway because I didn't fight well, and offer a good competition in the 3rd round. That's really cool.
Yeah, his post-fight interview, he even said, he's like, I thought it was a draw, or it even could have been for Stewart. So he's like, we'll run it back. And I'm more than happy to see it again. It was a great fight, but why not do it again? Make sure there's nothing left up for controversy or whatever. I'll see it again, and with the way things have been going, it'll probably be booked pretty soon.
Yeah, and this is one of 2 fights that we may get immediate rematches of. It's kind of crazy. You don't see that often on one fight card.
It was a crazy night, but yeah, this fight all in all very good. It seemed like, what did you think as far as the actual like action itself? Was there anything you saw from Kevin Holland here that you felt like, if they were to run this back, was there anything you saw from either fighter that was like, oh, that's going to be a problem in another fight?
I saw good things out of both. I thought they both honestly had great performances. That round 1 was like the definite decisive round for Kevin, where he looked really good. Again, round 2 is super close, but I still had Kevin winning it. But he's a very good striker and very unorthodox. Again, they're chit-chatting, and he's saying funny things in the octagon, like Kevin got kneed in the nuts one time, and he's like, oh, it must just be an Apex thing, because there's been a lot of groin shots throughout this summer. And Darren, like I said, was chirping at him in round 3 when he was eating him up with the ground and pound. I'm all for a rematch, because usually we try and match make what's next, but I think that's really, like, it's hard, right, when a dude wins, but I like it, and if they want it, if the fighters want it, then I'm completely fine with it. So
yeah,
and I think it would be a great second fight, because this one was a great fight. So
I agree. I definitely think that if Kevin Holland wants to win a second fight with Darren Stewart, that cardio is definitely got to be worked on, obviously.
Right.
Just because his style here, it looked like his style was to try to wear down Darren Stewart, but then he ended up kind of wearing himself out.
Yeah, I agree.
And Darren Stewart did not show like he was slowing down at all. Like, I feel like that dude could have went 5 rounds.
Oh, yeah. Dude, he's literally the middleweight version of Tyron Woodley. Very strong, great wrestling, and he really showed it in that 3rd round. But he's good striking. It was a very good fight. Kevin's that really long, lanky dude, and then Darren's kind of the short, stocky guy. So that's always cool when those 2 body types get to match up against each other.
Yeah, and going into this, I had Kevin Holland winning by decision, so that one worked out for me there. But who did you have? Do you remember?
Had Kevin via some sort of KO, finish. TKO, but I don't remember what round.
Okay.
But regardless,
all in all, we both had Holland winning, but I think Darren Stewart put up a better fight than either of us really saw coming. I mean, not that we were counting him out, but I think that he definitely showed quite a bit here.
Right.
At what level he's at right now. These guys are very even, I think.
I agree.
But moving on from there, we have our women's fight of the night.
My goodness.
Mackenzie Dern, man.
Don't go to the ground. Don't go to the ground with her. You'll immediately
Wow.
regret it. And I know Randa
Um,
Marcos probably does.
yeah, this was very interesting. I think it was about a 3-minute fight or so.
Yeah, 3 minutes and
But
44 seconds.
okay, so Mackenzie Dern gets the armbar finish, round 1 over Randa Marcos. Go ahead and break it down, Dom.
Yeah, so basically, like 40 seconds into the fight, Randa, I don't know what exactly happened, but she ends up in full guard. How they got there is not really too clear a day later when we're recapping, but regardless, it got to the ground. And regardless of if Mackenzie's on top or bottom, you just don't want to be on the ground with her. It's that simple. From the second they got on the ground, Mackenzie absolutely controlled the whole fight, even from the bottom. She was working triangle chokes, armoplatas, arm bars, and then ultimately got the armbar submission. Shout out to Randa Marcos, though, because she's got some flexible shoulders because it was
Yeah.
locked in for nearly 30 seconds, like deep, before she
Dude, it
finally
was
got the
nasty.
tap. It was crazy.
It was so nasty.
But Mackenzie is known for her, she's a world jiu-jitsu champion, I think multiple times. And the thing is, her striking is just getting better each fight. We just don't get to see
Right.
it much. Like, she's training with Jason Perillo. If you don't
Yeah.
know, that's Michael Bisping's coach. He's did a striking with Chris Cyborg. Like, he knows what he's talking about with strikers.
Yeah,
So
no,
the
that's
fact that
definitely
she's training with him with this outstanding jiu-jitsu, I think she's a future champ. It's just a matter of when, to be honest.
okay. I like that kind of call there. I mean, there's definitely a lot of hype behind her, especially now when that one loss she had is to Amanda Ribas, who has definitely proven that she's also in that same level of potential future champ status kind of thing.
Right.
This fight, I picked Randa to win. Probably not the smartest idea. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but man, once it got to the ground, it was over.
Oh, yeah.
I know Randa hung in there, showed a lot of heart to be able to kind of withstand what was going on, but Mackenzie, man, she was switching up those submissions like it was nothing. Just like with the arm, she just kept throwing that shit everywhere. She was throwing Randa's
so
arms
smooth
everywhere.
and like creative, and so just fluent and comfortable. Like,
Yeah,
I've never seen someone so comfortable on the ground. No matter, like I said, she was on her back this whole time, and was just controlling everything. It was wild.
well, because they even said on the broadcast that Randa was doing a lot of good things when it came to trying to defend the armbar.
Mm-hmm.
She was tying up Mackenzie's left leg and stuff like that, but Mackenzie completely composed, just able to just hang it, just hold it in position, and then as soon as she was able to get that leg free, able to really hammer it home, and Randa just eventually taps.
Yeah, it was like a beautiful science to like watch her. You could like see her just calculate her moves and what she was going to do. It was really very impressive.
Yeah, completely agree. Mackenzie going into this fight was ranked 15th in the women's strawweight division. So I'm curious who you think is next for her.
So I've kind of got three things in my head here.
Okay.
I really like, and we've already mentioned this, I like the fight with Angela Hill. Because I think that's something that is a big name for Mackenzie. And she's obviously Angela's 13th, so she's ranked ahead of her regardless. So it makes sense in all aspects. And I think Angela still deserves a ranked opponent because of how great her fight was with Michelle. So that's my option one. Option two, I'd like to see her fight like Atisha Torres, who's ranked 11th, but a seasoned vet who's kind of been there and done that with everybody. And then my third option would actually be the winner of Ribas and Carla, because it gives us the potential for the rematch with her and Ribas. Or maybe even the loser. Like, I could see it both ways. Because it's weird that Amanda got paired with Carla, because Amanda Ribas is 12th and Carla is number 6. So that's obviously a big gap. So it's kind of like I could see her fighting the winner or the loser. But I really want to see her fight Angela Hill, because Angela will, I believe, test her standing up a little bit more than some of her other opponents.
Right. The Tisha Torres fight is definitely very interesting. I definitely agree with that one. Another one that sticking out to me. Might be a little high, but Marina Rodriguez.
Yeah.
She just came off a very close decision loss to Carla Esparza at the end of July. She's ranked 9th right now. I think that could make a lot of sense, for her to fight down, and then you have Mackenzie trying to work her way up. That would definitely be a step up in competition as well, because Marina is someone that a lot of people think is potentially a top 5 level fighter.
Yeah, she's got to win over Tisha Torres.
A lot of people thought she won that fight with Carla, and Carla just keeps proving that she is. You cannot count her out, despite the way she's been counted out basically since she lost the belt.
Right.
So definitely no shame in a very close loss there. But I like the idea of that fight for Mackenzie. But yeah, either of those, I'm not against a potential rematch with Rivas, but I also feel like these two ladies are still very young, still working their way up, and I think you could potentially be looking at this as a future title fight.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fun rematch down the road as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be ready for that fight to happen, be run back yet, just because I feel like both these ladies are. They have a big name to them. Both of them do right now, and I feel like the UFC could be squandering a potential big money fight down the line for them.
Yeah,
a big title fight potentially. I'm not trying to work too far ahead for either of them, but they're both climbing pretty quickly, so it could happen before we know it.
Yeah, and Mackenzie's been really active as of recently after the baby and all that stuff. This is her 3rd fight of 2020, and she said she wants to fight again this year. And of course, right. Angela Hill, we know she wants to fight again. Yeah. I would like to see Mackenzie potentially go a little higher than 13, but like I said, there's something about that Angela Hill fight that I think's intriguing, and it kind of seems like the most feasible one to make if I'm the UFC, because we know Angela Hill ain't turning down a fight. So.
No, that'd be very interesting. It would definitely be, considering where Angela Hill, despite her record in the company, her status is definitely in that Cowboy Cerrone type vein of being like a fan favorite, of someone that always comes to fight, win or lose. So I think that could be big for both of them, because Mackenzie Dern has all this hype behind her. And then you got Angela Hill, who's kind of the underdog in that potential matchup, looking to squash the hype train,
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on from there. Very interesting one here is Johnny Walker gets a knockout over Ryan Spann in about 2 minutes 43 seconds. But I will say, before I let you take it away with kind of the breakdown of the action, this is a fight that I accurately predicted. I said Johnny Walker by first round knockout. However, is it weird that despite this being a big win for him, I feel like it also didn't answer a lot of the questions that are still being asked about him?
Not at all. I couldn't agree more with that statement.
Mm-hmm. So I'll let you take it away.
I don't even have like a good breakdown of this. I have a bullet point that says WTF just happened.
Yeah.
Leave it to Johnny Walker to get knocked out twice in one round and still win in one round. That's kind of all I got to say.
And this happened in less than 3 minutes.
Yes, this was the round of the night. Spann looked decent. Either guy didn't look great to me. It was just kind of, I don't want to say sloppy. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't the most technical striking war either. Both guys landed big shots on each other, essentially. And it eventually ends up where Spann's going for the takedown. So he's got the double leg wrapped around Walker, and Johnny's back is on the fence. And Johnny just rains down brutal elbows, hits right to the side of the temple, puts Ryan Spann's lights out. But before that, they were just clanging and banging. Johnny Walker got knocked down twice. And at one point, when Spann had completed one of those knockdowns, Johnny also threw a kick that landed right on Ryan's face. And I thought Ryan was like going to fall down on top of Johnny. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, man.
This was pure madness.
Just chaos.
And which is kind of what I was hoping it would be from these two. I just hate that, like, once it went down and it was done, I was just sitting there like, huh.
What just happened? That's what I
It
was
was
saying.
like I really was like pegging this to be like Johnny Walker's kind of comeback where it's like, okay, we're back on track here. He's still a guy that can be potentially a top 5 in that division. And then I kind of walked away going, I'm not sure.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying he looked bad. You know, it's a big win for him. Ryan Span's no slouch, and, you know, he looked good for the first couple minutes there. But I don't know, man. For both these guys, it almost came off like they both won and both lost at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I literally don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, in terms of like what should be next. So
I got one for Johnny.
For Johnny, I have a clear cut. Well, two people.
It's Anthony Smith.
Yeah, I 100%. I think it should be Anthony. The problem is I really want Anthony to take a break and
Right.
take some time away. And Johnny, granted he did get hit a lot. He said he's ready to roll again because at the end of the day he didn't like take too much damage. He just got rocked a couple times.
Right.
So just a few weeks for him to just rest up the head, the jaw. But he's obviously in shape. He didn't even go 3 minutes, so he's ready to roll. Anthony, on the other hand, is not. Like Johnny, I could see fighting at the end of the year. And that's why I kind of had one other option for him, and that was Volkan Oezdemir.
That was going to be my second one there.
Just because Volkan's coming off the loss to your boy, Yuri. But that was a little bit ago, so I think it just kind of lines up better. And it's still a ranked 7th dude, and I do think Johnny should fight up in the weight class. And then for Span, it'd be cool to see him fight a guy like Shogun potentially, or like a Misha Serkinov, ranked number 10. I think he does still deserve a top 15, but I don't want him fighting up more than, like I said, he's 12th, so Misha's number 10. And fighting a veteran like Shogun who's coming off a win, and he's ranked 14th. And it would be an opportunity for Shogun to kind of show he still has it in him, not only against a guy like Nogueira, another vet that's older, but that he can fight against a guy like Span too. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for him.
Well, that fight with Shogun could make a lot of sense because probably Ryan Span's biggest win of his career at UFC 237, which was in Brazil, headlined by Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade. Ryan Span knocked out Little Nog, Nogueira, in about 2 minutes.
Right.
So that Nogueira just his last fight, his retirement fight, just happened like less than or just over, it's been a month and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
He fought Shogun for the 3rd time. Shogun's still going strong, man. I don't see any reason why that fight can't happen.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
sure.
yeah, Walker,
it's just hard
though.
To get, for such an exciting round and for so much to happen, yet I feel like I have so little to take away from it.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Like, I legitimately am just, like, sitting here like, I don't know what to... for either guy.
Yeah. Like I said, there wasn't... Like, it was a fun fight.
Because I like both these guys. You keep saying, like, I'm the Johnny Walker guy. Ryan Span, I'm definitely a fan of as well. And yet, for both of them here, I'm just kind of left with a lot of questions.
Right.
Like, with Johnny, I'm still, like, kind of 1 foot out, 1 foot in with him.
Mm-hmm.
Despite what is arguably a big win. Yeah,
and I think it's a fight that we're, like, neither one of them are going to go anywhere in the rankings. It was number 11 versus number 12. It was a back and forth fight, and Johnny got a knockout. But neither one did anything to be like, whoa! So I don't think they move in the rankings. Therefore, the number 11 Johnny fighting a number 8 Smith or a number 7 Volkan. And again, a Span, who's number 12, with a number 10 Serkinov or a number 14 Shogun. Neither one, I don't think, at this moment, based off of the fight from Saturday, deserve anything more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
But both have
Overall,
huge
though,
ceilings and potential.
Overall, though, they both they brought it for that round. That was exciting. That was just a great round.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Definitely a little chaotic, not the most technical of affairs, but sometimes you just like a good old fashioned just slugfest, you know?
Yeah, that was the definition of the slobber knocker.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But here's a fight that went even less time, and maybe we'll have a lot more to talk about here. Khamzat Chimaev, the biggest prospect in the UFC, he had this fight with Gerald Meerchart, a fight where a lot of people were saying that they were overlooking Meerchart because they had already basically not officially announced, but it looked like that they were going to be trying to get Khamzat to fight Damian Maia next, who's ranked 7th at welterweight. He knocked out Meerchart in 17 seconds.
17 seconds.
The first fight he threw the fight.
Yeah.
Or the first punch. I said the first fight he threw the
first punch. One right hand. This is a guy that's known as a wrestler, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He said...
And this is Meerchart, a guy who... Actually, go ahead and start talking about... Break it down for everybody. I know it was 17 seconds, but just go ahead and talk.
Yeah, let me break this down. So, one punch KO. All right, Noah, go ahead. I mean, I literally wrote one punch KO WTF, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. That's insane. That's all I wrote. That's the only note I had.
So here's something about Meerchart, okay? He's been TKO'd twice in his career. Once to Thiago Santos, way back in the day. And then he was TKO'd by Ian Heinisch in his last fight, actually. This is the first time he's ever been knocked out cold.
Yeah. It was brutal. Khamzat walked him down, backed him up against the cage, one right hand, dropped. The referee just couldn't get there quick enough, so Chimaev landed like 2 or 3 more. So now, through 3 UFC fights, Chimaev has outlanded his opponents 194 to 3.
To 3? I thought it was still 2.
It might be 2.
Because I think he was hit twice in his first fight, and he has not been hit in his last 2.
Yeah.
That is
insane.
And
he's in the best organization in the world.
Look, man,
Can he just get 2 title fights in both divisions? Can we do that? Like in the same night, or?
Look. After what's kind of went on with Johnny Walker and stuff, I've been trying to be a little more hesitant to buy in on some of these guys that get a lot of the hype behind them. You just saw Edmund Shabazian get taken down, things like that. He's ready to fight for a belt.
Yeah.
He's not even ranked, bro.
So here's the fight.
Maia, him being given Damian Maia, that this might be like Old Yeller just playing out before our eyes.
It's the Shawn Michaels kick to the face of Ric Flair. Yeah.
Yep.
So at middleweight, I want to start there because this fight was technically at middleweight. There's one fight and one fight only. Marvin Vettori, number 14. That's the one.
Wow.
That's the one.
Wow.
That's the one.
Now, I do want to... I actually saw this brought up on Twitter about him fighting Marvin Vettori. And not to bring this side into it, because I like that when we matchmake, we don't really think about anything else. But Vettori and Khamzat, I believe, are both under... what's his name? The big-time manager.
Ali Abdelaziz?
Yeah, Ali.
Hey, man, so are Justin and Habib.
Well, okay, I know. But I'm just saying that for Marvin and for Khamzat, they're both kind of on the rise right now. So it's almost like, I don't know if that'll be the fight that happens at middleweight for him. I could totally see him fighting Brad Tavares next.
Yeah.
Or even... Well, actually, Ian Heinisch called him out.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, Ian Heinisch said I forget what he said. I think it was on Instagram. He said something along the lines of like, I'll welcome him to the top 15 at middleweight for sure.
Well, and that's who just TKO'd Gerald, right?
Yeah, at UFC 250.
So that definitely would make sense as well.
That's the fight that I'm. Even though 15, like you almost want to see him get higher because he's about to fight Damian Maia probably at welterweight, who's ranked 7th.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah. Okay. Look, Dave. All respect. Look, if there's a guy who could present a problem to Hazmat's style, it could be Damian Maia. But with that being said, this is likely. This will be this might be a Joseph Benavidez, Davison Figueiredo type story.
Like, here's the thing. He's about to be given a top 10 at welterweight. Is he just going to keep going back and forth each fight? Because I'm kind of down.
I like it.
Because if he's able and his body's okay with it, I mean, I'm assuming he just doesn't walk around much heavier than 185. Because he's not that big of a dude. I'd say at the most, he gets up to 200. Absolute max.
Well,
so that's why he's able to make that 170 so easy.
For welterweight, he's pretty big, isn't he?
Yeah, man. I mean, again, when you've got a guy that's knocking out Gerald Mearchart, who's a true middleweight in one punch, he's pretty damn big for welterweight.
Yeah, and look, Mearchart, all respect to him. It was a shot he didn't see coming. Hazmat was setting up the feint left hand perfectly and came with that right. He didn't even see it coming.
I think it's safe to say that I think everybody thought Chimaev was going to win, unfortunately, for Mearchart's sake. But I don't think anyone saw that happening. I was not expecting to, one, not go to the ground at all, or at least clinch, and two, being a one-punch good night.
You texted me when it happened and said, Hazmat's pretty good at fighting.
Yeah. That's all I got to say. He's good. Hazmat is a good fighter.
I said, give him the belt, bro. Just give it to him. Tomorrow, Usman who? Israel Adesanya who?
Did you see Dana's press conference?
Actually, I wanted to watch it before we recorded, but I have not yet. I'm going to actually watch it probably right.
He went into so much detail about just how in awe he is, basically, of Chimaev and how...
I did see the quote, how he was saying that he thinks that Hazmat's one of the most special fighters he's ever came across. Maybe the most.
Yeah, if not the most. And again, it's hard, right? He's had 3 fights in the UFC, but it's just... This is crazy, man. What he's doing... Like, if he goes in a month or two and fights Damian Maia, number 7 at welterweight, in his 4th ever UFC fight, and does what he's been doing, buddy, look out. Both divisions, you're on notice. That's all I got to say.
He might be ruining our picks for who will be champion by August 2021.
Yeah, and not only that, he's going to ruin it for 2 divisions. He's gonna go win 2 belts.
He might win 2 belts and keep defending them every month.
Yeah, then go up to freaking light heavyweight. I don't know what he's gonna do. This is really something special that if you're an MMA fan, you need to really take notice of this because you don't see things like this happen often.
I implore everyone who's listening that is like a casual viewer, or even if you're someone like us who watches quite a bit, really take notice of this guy from here on out because it's really history we're watching.
Yeah, and he's only 26.
Regardless of if, let's say, his next fight with Damian Maia, you want to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's say Maia upsets him. I mean, I know he's only had 3 fights in the UFC, but you're talking like an all-time moment.
Oh, I can't even imagine what the betting lines will be for Chimaev after last night.
Yeah, I
mean, he'll probably open up a minus 800.
It felt like in a lot of ways, like that fight last night, it kind of felt like Conor's moment when he knocked out Poirier.
Mm-hmm. You kind of had this guy come in with a lot of hype, but then he gets this very noticeable win, relatively easy, and you're like, okay, wait. This guy's talking the talk, and he's backing it up. And we
I
see
almost
what
said
Conor went on to do.
I almost said that it was like Conor's Aldo moment, but that was for a belt, so I ain't gonna go that high with
And
it.
it's crazy because this run that Chimaev's on is significantly more convincing and dominant than what Conor did. And Conor
Well,
was very dominant, by the way.
What anybody has done.
Yeah, this is insane.
I mean, even like, I mean, the closest example is probably Anderson Silva, but like that was at a different time. Literally, Silva had one fight in UFC, dominant win over Chris Lieben. Then he gets the belt, dominates Rich Franklin. Rest is history.
I think we're seeing a bigger version and more powerful version of Khabib. I mean,
bro.
let's be real.
This guy's a problem.
Yeah.
And for Mearchart, like, man, tough loss right there. That's tough, especially when he was, you know, sure he was being overlooked, but he was making sure everybody knew that he was going to be a problem for Hazmat. He said that Hazmat won't be able to walk into that next fight with Damian.
Right.
Well, he's right. He's not going to be able to walk into that next fight because the UFC is going to literally carry him.
Yeah, he's already on the plane. He's in Abu Dhabi already.
I mean, Jesus, dude, like that's tough.
Yeah, it's really a special time right now to kind of just witness this. No matter how long this lasts, and I'd say it's going to last a while, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody please keep tuning into this stuff because this is going to be big for a while, I would say. But moving on from there, we got our co-main. The fight of the night, I would say.
Oh, yeah, 100%. As we predicted.
As we predicted. We have a majority draw, though, as Cowboy Cerrone and Nico Price fight to a majority draw. I loved everything about this fight. The lead-up, the fight itself, the post-fight. Did you see the clip of the two after the fight backstage?
Yep.
Nico said, he's like, I want to be you, basically. And I was just like,
talking about their kids. And yeah, it was one of the most heartwarming post-fight interviews. You don't see two fighters give interviews together, first off. So that was really special.
Yeah, so I'm curious, Dom, what were your thoughts of the actual fight itself and everything?
I thought the fight was going to be over within the first 2 minutes. The way it started. Nico put on a pace that I couldn't keep up. He was hitting Donald with every shot. So shout out to Cowboy for riding the storm because, again, we got another example of it last night. Donald is not a good starter. It's clear, right?
He's a slow starter. He's admitted that.
Yeah, and last night it showed even more. Nico absolutely dominated the first 2 minutes of that round. Donald then began to get more comfortable and, defend better, but Nico ultimately wins round 1, 100%. However, he had a couple eye pokes, and because of that, the referee deducted a point away from Nico Price. So, round 1 ultimately gets scored 9-9. Keep that in mind. Round 2, another back and forth round, way more back and forth in terms of like a lot closer of a round. I still had Nico winning it though, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic back and forth on the feet the entire fight. And then round 3, literally more of the same. It's basically just repeated over and over and over. I actually put, I don't know who won the third round, and then I put, but it was a great fight. So, if I remember the scorecards correctly, one judge gave the fight to Cowboy, 29-28. And then the other two judges scored it 28-28, 28-28, which leads us to the majority draw because 2 out of the 3 judges scored it a draw.
Yeah, you were right, except the one that scored it for Cowboy, it was 29-27 due to that deducting a point.
That judge was watching a different fight, in my opinion, because I thought that if it hadn't been for the eye poke, Nico clearly won rounds 1 and 2. So at the most, Cowboy won round 3. That's it. So, of course, because of the draw in round 1, that means that it was a 9-9. a 10-9, and then a 10-9 the other way, and that's how we get the draw. This fight's going to be rematched, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Dana did mention that he thinks it's time to have a talk with Donald, which is, that's sad. This is a guy that we've got to meet. We've had the pleasure to meet him. He's truly the embodiment of a fighter in every sense of the word, and he's done it all. He has countless records that I can't even list off because the episode will be 6 hours long.
Yeah.
And Nico, on the other hand, looked fantastic and really brought the fight to him. Donald did say that he felt it was the worst performance that he had ever had, which I thought was interesting because honestly, I thought he looked relatively well because he survived that round one storm, and I thought he was going to go down. So I don't know. It's weird. I kind of went on a tangent.
Just, you don't want to take too much into what someone's saying in the heat of the moment. The fight just happened. He's been hit a lot. Definitely not the worst performance of his career. We just saw one that was probably up there with the Conor fight. But all in all, I want to see this fight again. But Donald did say, he said that's the last you're going to see of me for 2020. Basically, he's saying he's going to take more time off, which I think is good for him.
Yeah, I'm glad he decided to make that decision. I think it's also just because, again, he had the second son just born, literally last week. So, I'd imagine that was very difficult, and he talked about that in the post-fight presser. So, yeah, early 2021, run it back, and, do you think, win or lose, that might be it for Cowboy?
I don't think it'll be it if it's up to Cowboy, but I think it'll be it if Dana truly...
Yeah, what do you make of Dana kind of saying, maybe it's time to have a talk? Because we know that's kind of ultimately what happened with him and Chuck, and of course led to Chuck.
That's the obvious one. That's the obvious one, right? The Chuck Liddell thing. I definitely think that it could be the last we see of him, especially if he loses to Nico. Then you're talking about a guy who, outside of this draw, had lost 5 fights straight.
Yeah.
But there's been some inconsistencies over the years, because then you got a guy like BJ Penn who I think now he's pretty much done, but that man was allowed to fight for a decade without ever winning a fight.
Yeah, he hasn't won it's 2020. He hasn't won since 2010, right?
Yeah, I believe he's lost 10 straight.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No.
So that's a guy, and I think now he's done, because I don't know if you remember the clip of the outside of a bar, that dude punched BJ Penn in the face and knocked him out cold.
I don't know if I ever actually saw the clip, but I did hear about the incident.
Yeah. So I think now he's done. Once something like that happens, you kind of that's not good. But I don't know, man. I don't know if it'll truly be the last time we see him. I think a lot of it depends on how that rematch goes. But, the fact that Dana's at least acknowledging it, which is probably something that we've all kind of wondered since he hasn't been able to get a win here in a while. For Cowboy, though, he keeps claiming that he's wanting to fight for damn near 5 more years and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
Do you think he makes it to the age of 40? Because I believe he's 37 now.
No,
yeah.
I don't. I don't know if this break he's kind of been taking, which I know it's not really a long break, but for him, it feels like it's been, he hadn't fought since May. So that's been 4 months, which is, again, pretty normal for most fighters.
Unless you're Cowboy.
And now he just said he's not going to fight again in 2020. So if you take his word on that, if it's January, that's another 4 months.
Right.
So I'm wondering if now he's starting to accept that and is on his way out as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's another thing of maybe the UFC is also just trying not to let him fight as often as he wants to. But again, second son being born, he's got a lot of plans for his BMF ranch that he's been talking about for a while. The guy does so much shit outside the octagon, so much just cool shit.
He lives an incredible life. It's pretty wild.
That man has no fear.
No, he fears nothing.
And all in all though, there's a lot to take away from this fight for both guys, but I think the only right matchup is to see them two fight again.
Right. Yep, I agree.
I will say Nico showed me a lot here.
Oh yeah, he looked good. That first round was pretty amazing.
You know, Cowboy obviously is past his prime at this point, but he's still definitely a top 15 level guy.
Yeah.
A guy who's really hung in there with the best of the best. And even in the past year. And Nico has been a guy that's been kind of trading wins and losses, but his wins come in such an exciting fashion, and his losses happen in fights of the night and stuff like that. So he's really garnered a reputation. But, you know, I was kind of counting him out a little bit. I was like, okay, this is a guy he's known for putting on great fights, win or lose. Well, he loses quite a bit of the fights he has, so maybe he's probably going to lose this one.
Right.
But he showed a lot, man. He won the fight if it wasn't for the eye pokes.
Yeah, he did. It was a definite 2-1, potentially 3-0, had it not been for, you know, the eye pokes. And then obviously, you know, two judges did see it for Cowboy, and the one gave him 2 rounds, so, which was very surprising. But
well, you mean 2 judges had the draw?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, all in all, hopefully we see it again. If they really do have the talk with Cowboy like now, maybe we're talking about a different fight for Nico, but this fight will probably get him very close to that top 15, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he didn't win, you got to think that he's got to be pretty close to that top 15.
Hey, he's more than deserving of a top 15.
For sure.
But both guys, obviously, but especially Nico, a guy that's still got more gas left in the tank.
Yeah. So, moving on to the main event. We got Colby Chaos Covington going up against Tyron Woodley. The fight that it seemed like was never going to happen. Pretty much, 2 years in the making?
Yeah.
Overall, went very much like Tyron's last 2 fights. Very disappointing to see that, I think. But I want to give you a chance here to just talk about the fight itself in its entirety.
Yeah, so we basically saw nearly 5 full rounds. Of course, I'll get into it. But round 1, Colby completely controls the clinch and just the octagon in general, cutting off Tyron. He had Tyron's back on the cage. He did land 1 takedown in that first round. I think it's just notable to take down or mention all of the takedowns Colby got, just because, again, Tyron has that, you know, highest takedown accuracy in welterweight history at 91+%. So I had it 1-0 for Colby. Really much of the same happened in round 2. It was the best round for Tyron. I don't want to say he let his hands go, but he at least loosened up a little more. I think Colby only outlanded him strike-wise by like 7 or 8 in that round. Tyron did land a couple where you were like, oh, Colby felt that at least. So that's when I was kind of like, okay, maybe we'll see him just continue that, you know, that pace and just continue to loosen up as the fight goes on. Well, round 3 happens, and it was pretty identical to round 1. A lot of more clinch control, octagon control, etc. for Colby. So at this point, he's up 3-0, meaning that in a championship fight, there's 2 rounds left. So Tyron can no longer win by decision. He basically has to finish the fight. And his corner told him that, going from the 4th to the 5th, because in the 4th round, it was a 10-8. It was dominant. Colby absolutely dominated the entire round from start to finish on the ground, cut Tyron very badly with an elbow. He outlanded 113 strikes to 2 in round 4.
I didn't realize it was that. I didn't realize Colby landed that much in that round.
He broke Tyron, I believe, in that round, unfortunately. And then that's where Tyron's coach, Duke Rufus, says you have to finish it. You have to go out here and finish the fight in round 5. Round 5 begins. Tyron pulls guard. Well, it was kind of a half pull guard and a half takedown. But Tyron has a guillotine locked in. And he's trying to crank the neck. Colby's able to kind of slip out, reverse his body over top of Tyron. And during this kind of transition on the ground, Tyron just lets out this scream. My rib, my rib. Fight gets called off. We found out today, of course we're recording this on Sunday, Tyron did break one of his ribs during the fight. I think it actually happened earlier on in the fight. At least that's what I had seen from some of the tweets. And then that 5th round during that transition on the ground is where it just completely, it maybe poked, something, or I don't really know. But you know someone's in pain when you're in the middle of a fist fight and you scream, I can't, So it was very similar to, if anybody remembers, the Anthony Pettis and Dustin Poirier fight, where Dustin is on the ground in top control, and as he's transitioning from like side control to full mount or vice versa, Anthony kind of twists and he screams out, and his rib, I don't know if it officially broke because this was a little while ago, but his rib got messed up and the fight ended the same way. So all in all, Colby gets the TKO finish, 1 minute and 19 seconds into round 5.
This was once again, for Colby Covington, this was a just outclassing of a opponent, a former champ. Tyron has officially lost 15 rounds in a row. It's time for him to hang it up, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm saying that in like the most respectful way. Even Dana said it in the post-fight. I don't know if you saw, but Usman and Rashad Evans had a very good 2-minute clip talking about it, and Rashad kind of brought his perspective into it, being he was a great fighter, former champion, and then he reached this point in his career where it just wasn't fun anymore, and it just felt like, I got a fight coming up, I got to get ready for a fight. And he's basically said, when you start feeling that way and it's showing in your performances, it's time. It's probably the best thing to do for your mental health and just being mentally strong, and of course for your physical health. Tyron's got a family, kids, and you don't want to continue going down this path. You kind of want to go out while you still can, because Tyron is one of the greatest welterweights we've ever seen. So I think it's time.
It's just, there's nothing left for him to prove. And
right.
I feel like, for him to continue kind of falling down the ladder here, I think it's only going to do damage to his legacy at this point, and he might as well just go out now.
Yep.
Yeah, you're talking, these aren't like, him getting like knocked out in a round or whatever. You're talking like 5 rounds of being dominated.
Yeah.
In 3 straight fights.
Yeah, you can't really be said
top,
any better.
You're talking the top of that division.
For sure.
But I'm not saying that there isn't anybody. I'm not saying he couldn't beat anybody, but it doesn't look like his head's in it, his heart's in it anymore. I don't want to assume that, but that's just what it doesn't. I don't feel a sense of urgency because he knows he's down in these fights, and he still just kind of sticks to his guns a little bit. Doesn't really show any sense of urgency, any sort of want to put it all on the line, And yeah, I completely agree with Rashad, where it's like if you start feeling that way, it's probably time.
Yep.
As for Colby, though, this win was pretty big for him.
Yeah, this was huge.
I want to know. I feel like there's one obvious name for who's next for him, based off of because right now Usman, Gilbert Burns booked for the end of the year. There's one guy without a fight. We continue to have Masvidal looking like he's going to rematch Nate Diaz. I think it's Leon Edwards.
So I, I would love that more so for Leon because the poor guy just
Yeah,
just getting slept on, man.
yeah.
So I would love that fight. And Colby's 2, Leon's 3, it makes sense. However, I am also kind of in that boat where I feel Colby was so dominant that he could wait and just fight the winner of Burns and Usman. Just because we know how good of a fight he had with Usman, and you could argue he was
Yeah.
winning the fight, and they
I mean, you
had their
know how I
big
felt.
talk
You know
post fight.
how I felt. You know how I felt about that fight.
Yeah, you thought
I
he was up 3-1.
Yeah. So.
And then I'm sure you saw it. They were yelling at each other post fight on the broadcast, and they very much still dislike each other.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if Burns is able to beat Usman, then I think it's even easier to justify a title for Colby. I think. I would honestly love to see Colby fight Jorge. It's just Jorge's probably gonna fight Diaz, obviously. I'm not opposed to Colby Leon, but Colby didn't even mention his name last night. If you noticed that, he only mentioned Masvidal and Usman. Now I know those are the two biggest names for him to call out, obviously, but do you think it's partially because, I mean, Leon's a problem, you know?
I mean, he didn't say anything about Burns either, but then Burns said some shit on Twitter, and Colby might have responded. I don't know, but
I know Leon called him out last night too.
right.
Leon needs to be given a fight. Somebody's got to fight my man.
I feel like if Colby wants to fight, whether it's by the end of the year or beginning of next year, like since that title fight isn't booked until December, depending on how it goes, there could possibly not be another title fight for that division until April, May.
Right.
That's a long wait for a guy, to justify giving him that title fight.
Do you think that he could wait though? Like, do you think he did enough to kind of earn that next spot and just kind of sit around and wait?
Look, man, I definitely think he's deserving of a title shot. But it's not always how that goes. A lot of it's the timing of everything, and I'm not sure if in May I would agree with what I'm saying now.
Right.
Sure, if that title fight hadn't been booked yet, I would still think Burns should be next, but I'd also be going, well, maybe Colby's next.
Yeah.
But since the Burns-Usman fight's booked, I mean, I'm sure Colby might be on standby in case someone falls out of that matchup.
True. Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of what he's going to do. Or maybe he'll be on standby even for someone falling out of Diaz Masvidal. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just think the Edwards fight makes a lot of sense. Am I confident it's going to happen? No, Colby's not necessarily the most active fighter.
That's kind of the boat I'm in, I guess, to better put it.
Colby's definitely taken his breaks. He was definitely willing to wait for the opportunity. And I'm not sure if the Leon fight for him and his mindset is worth the risk, which is unfortunate because Leon just nobody wants to fight that man.
Yeah, the only person I even hear people mentioning of is him and Wonderboy. And if I'm Leon, I mean, yeah, it's a fight, so maybe take it, and it is a big name, but still, I'm ranked 3rd. I'm on an 8-fight win streak. Give me 1, 2, 3, or 4. So it's just a weird spot. That division's so good.
It is. I think there's not a ton of options, but it's even for Leon, that Wonderboy fight, I think is big enough that I think it's good for him though. Even though Wonderboy's a little lower, you're talking about a guy who's had multiple title fights,
respected by so many,
who's still very well known in the sport and a big name.
He's not fought in a long time, it seems like. When did he fight Luque?
That was on the Masvidal Diaz card back in.
So he hasn't fought in almost a year. Wow.
Yeah, is that?
Yeah, that was November of last year, so almost a whole year now.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely a matchup I'd be excited to see if it happens. But for Colby, he has a lot of options here. I think but yet, who knows? A lot of these options are kind of assumptions at the same time. Is he really looked at as being viable for Masvidal in the UFC's eyes?
Probably not.
Is he really looked at as earning another title shot?
So then where does that leave him? And then that's where Leon comes in.
Yeah. Does the UFC even look at him versus Leon as being big enough? Colby headlined a fight night here. Obviously, this was not some normal fight night. It's probably the biggest one they've ever done. But, you could have a Colby Leon either headline a fight night or be the co-main of a pay-per-view or something. So,
yeah, 100%.
It's interesting to say the least, and I'm curious to see what kind of happens from here. If I had to guess right now, I think you're going to see Colby probably won't fight again in 2020, and you'll hear him keep talking about the title fight. He's going to really push for that, I would say, in the after it happens in December. And then maybe it gets booked or maybe it doesn't. Who knows? So I don't think we'll see Colby fight again until probably April, May.
Yeah.
Whether it's a title fight or not.
I definitely could see that for sure.
And that's UFC Vegas 11.
And now we're off to Fight Island, buddy.
Yeah. Now we're packing our bags for Abu Dhabi.
We're going back 5 straight weeks of absolutely just fantastic pay-per-views and fight nights.
And yeah, we're starting with the big one too.
Oh, the one we've been waiting on. We've been talking about this since episode 1 of the podcast, I feel like.
I know, it's wild.
And here we are.
Yeah. As for this Wednesday, we have our next special episode, and this one's a little extra special. It's the first of what is going to be another series for us called Who's Next?
Who's Next? Yeah.
Messing up the name already. Who's Next? Essentially, the concept being we're going to be the two of us, randomly given a division in the UFC, men or women's divisions. And based off of who's ranked 1 through 15 in that division, we have to matchmake and pair up every fighter in that division. Now, 15 is an uneven number. So one of the people in the top 15 isn't going to have a matchup. Well, we have to pair them up with someone who is currently unranked, who we feel is deserving of that opportunity. And the thing is, we're not going to know what division we're given until we do the episode.
Yeah,
live.
Until we're literally recording.
So it's really going to test our matchmaking skills, our ability to think on our feet, and I think it'll be very fun. It's something that we can do for every division, so obviously it's something that can be a series, and we can go back over divisions as the time goes on and things get moved around. So overall, it should be very exciting, very fun to record, I would assume.
The special episodes always hit a little differently.
Yeah, they're always a little extra special, right? So that'll be Wednesday, but then Friday, big preview show.
Oh, my goodness.
Next Saturday is UFC 253, Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. One of those O's has got to go.
Yes, sir.
And I am so excited to break that down with you. And we'll get into, obviously, news and things like that as well, if any of that comes out this week.
And we finally get a new light heavyweight champion.
So, yeah, I guess I don't want to sleep on the fact that you got Dominic Reyes and Jan Blachowicz going at it for the vacant light heavyweight title.
A new champion that is not named John Jones or Daniel Cormier for the first time in nearly a decade will happen this coming Saturday.
Incredible. It's incredible. And
yeah.
I just kind of slept on that right there.
And hopefully, sorry I cut you off. I can't see you. That was kind of getting into my thing. We're obviously still not together right now, so we're still working through that. So hopefully you guys can bear with us, whether it's 1 more episode, 2 more episodes, so on and so forth. But hopefully you guys are still enjoying the podcast nevertheless.
Yeah. But with that being said, Dom, tell the people where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DClee14. You can find our podcast Instagram at BelowAverageJoes_podcast. And of course, you can find our podcast, well, damn near anywhere that you can think of. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google. Head over to our Anchor website, and you can go to a bunch of other websites.
Mm-hmm.
Become a supporter of the podcast. Leave us voice messages, all the fun stuff. You can find it in the link tree on our Instagram page, on our YouTube description, and of course, both of our social medias.
Yep. So if you go to my bio at ntbaker_ on Twitter or Instagram, it'll take you to our link tree, which contains all the links to every platform we're on, from YouTube to Apple to Google to Anchor to Instagram, and then obviously the links to become a supporter, and there you can leave voice messages. On our Anchor page, we're on a lot of other podcasting sites, but they're just not those are just the big ones. So if you go to Anchor, it has every platform that we're on.
Yeah, it's 8 or 9 different platforms, so
yeah, so
we're everywhere.
So if there's somewhere else that you want to listen, we're probably on there as well. So just go there and check us out, and leave your thoughts in the comments on either this video, or obviously if you're listening to this on Spotify or any of those other ones, you can just text us or leave a comment on our Instagram or whatever. Leave us a DM.
I'm waiting on that first voice message to come through.
Yeah,
I'm waiting
I'm waiting with anticipation for sure. But again, you can find me at ntbaker_ on Twitter and Instagram. And with that, we're out, and we'll see y'all on Hump Day.